I do believe it's time to bring in Brian Ross in Real News. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning to you, Marshall.
I thought maybe you were out there with the Supreme Court with see if they'll seal their legacy today and tomorrow with a couple of more big rulings.
Well, we are living in the land of Ginny and Clarence Thomas. Next decades, I think. The court, is very slow to change and move, and none of this is going to be undone or change much. And the confusion that it has sown in terms of what's going to happen with abortion rights, now talks of states that are going to prosecute anybody who lives in their state and goes out of the state to have an abortion, questions of the First Amendment, can abortion providers in New York advertise in Texas, lots of issues that have been sort of the surface because of this, and the great confusion. And, and for women who want to have a choice in those states, they're just out of luck.
Well, and now that we're expecting a decision on whether or not the Supreme Court is going to allow the EPA to stick to its restriction of coal use and things like that. I mean, the ramifications of Supreme Court decisions this summer and next summer are huge for the next 20 years.
They are, and I think the court, frankly, has lost some credibility because the decisions seem to many Americans to be highly political, and the majority of Americans don't agree with the decisions. And there are questions just about the legal scholarship involved. I see former Secretary of State and Senator Hillary Clinton saying this is completely, sort of a botched legal theory.
Well, it'll be once again we'll all look at it, but when you look at the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice basically warned that this was going to happen. And he really didn't want them to strike down abortion overall. He wanted them just to support that one law in that one state, because he now has lost control of the court, and it's
right.
It's too
no
bad.
Longer his court. It really isn't. It's more Alito's and Thomas's court.
Yeah.
They are driving the agenda. I think it has raised questions about whether there should be term limits. I saw one proposal recently that every president would be able to nominate two justices to the Supreme Court, and there would be term limits, and there'd be two that would go off, and that way there'd be no confusion about it. There would be a constant understanding that every new president gets two picks. That's one proposal. Other proposals are to pack the court. I think that seems very political in itself. So, but lots of talk now about the credibility of the court. One more American institution, under fire.
Yep, absolutely. And it won't be the last, because what's the old saying? Once the barn door has been left open and the cows or the horses are out of the barn, you don't get them back in. You just don't get them back in.
The horses are running wild.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look at the, speaking about wild, I'll tell you what, I did not expect the January 6th committee to have the impact that they have, but the testimony that came the other day was I think most of us realized it was a White House in chaos, but not this much chaos. Not
to the extent that Cassidy Hutchinson revealed in her riveting testimony, this 25-year-old woman who was just down the hall from the president. By the way, Mr. Trump says he barely recalls who she is, hardly knows her. That's what he usually says when anybody is critical of him. But her testimony, grabbed the country's attention. And I think for so many people, it's revealing that if these, what she says, her statements are corroborated, that at one point the president wanted to go down to the Capitol to join the mob. Secret Service wouldn't take him. He tried to grab the steering wheel, grabbed the throat of his chief Secret Service agent. Some talk now whether that actually happened, but that was her testimony. And this morning, she and Congresswoman Liz Cheney are saying they stand by the testimony. It's not only what he did by what he did with this; it's what he said. I'm the president of the United States, like it was the ultimate authority to do anything that he wanted to. That quote
and in a moment of anger is what most people have worried about with Donald Trump sitting there with his fingers possibly on the nuclear button. You know,
he's the effing president, and you might as well say he's the king, because that's what he's really asserting, that he had unlimited powers, unlimited controls. I mean, to get that level of detail, that granular detail from her, the ketchup on the wall. I mean, that likes ketchup on everything. Puts it on, throwing plates at the wall because he didn't like what the Attorney General was saying about the election results. Does reveal a man who is, it sounds almost mad.
Yeah. Well, let's go from that to NATO, because I want to go to NATO because Joe Biden has been a little slow to take up on a lot of things, I think, but I think what he's done to restore the United States as a power in the world, and bringing NATO and even now two more nations into NATO, and this was a big stand up to Russia, because Russia is saying that it's going to create tensions, but from seeing what Russia's military has been unable to do in 4 months, I think NATO is in a far superior position than they were before this whole thing started.
Well, Vladimir Putin's efforts seem to have backfired. If his ultimate goal was to weaken NATO, he's done nothing but strengthen it. This is all on the backs of the Ukrainians, who continue to fight. And reports this morning they've recaptured this pivotal island, Snake Island, which controls a lot of the Black Sea access. So as more arms pour in, it's a kind of arms race. Can the U.S. and NATO allies resupply Ukraine faster than Russia can resupply from its own stocks of shells and missiles?
And in all this turmoil and all this news, a significant thing is happening. A new justice is arriving at the Supreme Court.
Yes.
The first African-American woman justice.
Being sworn in today, it'll be, it's a bellwether day at a time when, as we were saying, the court has challenges to its credibility. She won't change the balance, 6-3 conservative, sort of liberal split right now, and she won't change that. She replaces Stephen Breyer. And we should salute Mr. Breyer. Justice Breyer served this country so well.
Yeah, and it's a double-edged sword. You know why he had to retire, not because he was not able to do the job, but just to protect that seat from being named possibly 2 years down the road, and changing history probably for 50 to 100 years. That's how political. Unfortunately, that's how political the court has become. But you know what?
He read the political tea leaves, unlike Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who was urged to do the same thing and did not, and she died when Trump was president.
Yeah, and when you look at where we are now, just take a look at what's going on in Israel now. Once again, democracy in these countries, Israel is going what, to their 6th election in 6 years?
Right. We think we are in chaos. Look around at the rest of the world. But democracy is not necessarily neat and pretty. Sometimes it can be, the voice of the people comes and goes, and people have different opinions. Democracy is supposed to be, the result of the election is the result of the election. And frankly, that has been the great American tradition, the peaceful transition of power, the belief in the power of the ballot. And this is why, all of it underscores what Mr. Trump did when he was president, his desperate efforts to remain in power.
And I think he's hurting himself even more because already in one poll, Governor DeSantis outpolled him as Donald Trump as a prospective candidate for president. I really believe that by Donald Trump doing what he's doing, hanging in there, and pushing this agenda, that if for some reason Republicans, someone else other than him runs, I think it could be a disaster for the Republican Party, because I think the Trump voters, which are now probably 30% of the Republican Party, solid Trump supporters, they will sit on their hands.
Well, it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, Mr. Trump has created a huge dilemma for his party by insisting that he will run the show, picking candidates. I saw some polls out this morning that the race in Georgia for the U.S. Senate between Herschel Walker, who was handpicked by Donald Trump, and Reverend Warnock. Reverend Warnock now leads by 10 percentage points in the latest polls. He had been tied just a month and a half ago. And I think the ramifications of, one, the Supreme Court's ruling on abortion, and two, these hearings that are devastating to Mr. Trump, are having an effect on the American people. And, a lot of people say, well, this will never cut through. Nobody will listen. Fox won't carry it. But Fox is now carrying it, and I think it is cutting through.
Yeah, I think it's definitely cutting through now. It's going to be a long process still to go, but it's definitely they've done their investigation and they've brought out some facts that needed to be brought out to the public. Without
a doubt, and it's been compelling testimony with several more hearings to come after the July 4th recess, and I think now they are. You can't turn it off. You need to watch it because you just don't know what they're going to produce. They're putting a subpoena out now for the White House counsel, Patrick Malone, who seems to have great knowledge of what went on inside there, and he's trying to figure out what he can do in terms of whether he feels bound by executive privilege, lawyer-client relationship. But the White House counsel is not the personal lawyer of Donald Trump. He's the President of the United States lawyer, and he has to respect the institution, unlike his boss.
He's a lawyer for the office, not the individual in the office.
Right, and that gets lost by so many White Houses, not just this one. They all assume it's one and the same, and it's not.
No. Well, Brian, we'll see what happens by the time we talk next week.
It's always busy. I hope you're going to have a great July 4th weekend. A quick reminder, the Sharon Library Saturday morning, 11 o'clock, a little community gathering to let everybody see the construction's underway on our great new addition.
It's fantastic to see the construction underway, and it's a great weekend for us all to sit back, relax, and not disparage one another, but love our country.
And we'll be auctioning off cakes. I'll be one of the auctioneers Friday at the Sharon Historical Society.
Let them
6 o'clock. Let them eat cake. There are 24 bakers who are going to give us cakes. They're all great. And last year we raised a record amount. I was stunned myself at how much some of these cakes went for. Well, they were great.
Yeah, they're amazing cakes, and the people that put them together are also amazing, and the people that support by bidding on them also are amazing. It's a great way. And you know what? It shows our lifestyle out here isn't that bad at all.
We live in a great place. I hope you drop by, Marshall. It'll be great to see you.
I will try to stop by. It all depends on how the needs are.
Okay.
All right.
We got some chairs there. I'll give you a drink and sit back and watch the auction.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye. Brian Ross and Real News this morning here on The Breakfast Club on Robin Hood Radio.